in new versions of Cache and Ensemble, active analytics, the marriage of real-time business intelligence embedded with unstructured and structured data gives new opportunities for application developers to identify patterns within the system and measure performance, alert when circumstances are changing, but in conjunction with the typical deep sea model, to be able to drill back down to the specific user transactions that are forcing that circumstance and thereby allowing someone to make changes. Let me give you an example of one general class of breakthrough application that we've seen many partners actually try to use the I-know technology for. And their approaches have been different. So I'm not talking about one specific customer here, but sort of the best model that we've seen someone employ. The problem here, the challenge here is twofold. In customer support settings, how do you answer as many questions as possible automatically, i.e. you don't need to involve a customer support agent in defining the answers. You can deliver the most likely answer automatically. And when you do need to involve an agent, how do you ensure that the question is routed to the most appropriate agent, the person who has the best skills and is available at that time and therefore is most likely to address the user's issue most quickly? This is not a new problem. People have been attempting to solve this problem for many years. And the traditional approach to trying to solve this is to define some set of keywords and then to search on incoming data, whether it's an email message request for support or voice to text that's then analyzed or a web request for assistance, and try to match the content with the keywords, and then using that information, look up in some kind of skills database and then try to route the question automatically. This approach produces marginal benefits. And why is that? The reasons are that, first, it's very difficult and to define the appropriate set of keywords. There are many, many synonyms in use, and it's very hard to keep the right set of keywords up to date. It's also difficult, as any of you who've worked in customer service environments know, to keep the skills information content. What agents have what skills, what have their capabilities been, what have their response times been. And maintaining that information accurately is much more difficult than it would seem at first glance. And so the traditional approaches have been only somewhat better than the existing, just route it to a human and let a human decide. And consequently, the cost savings and ultimately the user satisfaction have not been increased as much as one would expect. With I-know, what we're seeing are some very different ways of approaching that problem. First of all, there is no need to define a dictionary of terms that will serve as keywords. There's no reason to have such an ontology because I-know will extract that information automatically. There's no reason to have a skills database because in reality, all the requisite information is typically available in the support database, although it's typically available as unstructured data. So by tapping into that, partners are seeing that they can identify dynamically who the most appropriate agents are. So the process that's being used by some of our better solutions using I-know is first to extract the concepts from the incoming textual information, regardless of how that text is generated. Using the concepts found there, we can then do similarity matches using linguistic constructs from all the previously answered questions in the support database. And with a very high accuracy, find similar answers and offer that answer to a user automatically. Something like, other users have found the following information helpful in the circumstances you're describing, then the answer. And then, does this address your question, yes or no? If it does, wonderful. You've saved significant time. You've delivered a much more immediate response to the user. You haven't required the engagement of a human. And we're seeing that there's a very high level of accuracy in those automated responses. But when that's not the right answer, we can match the available agents based upon their history in the support database with the concepts in the question, route the question to them, and with a high likelihood that they'll be able to answer the user's question most quickly. The key thing here, though, is that that then updates the support database, and over time, the system becomes more and more accurate because it's constantly optimizing itself. One of the key decisions we made last year was that it was important for you, or partners, to have access to this technology without the need to pay additional costs. And so both the Deep Sea technology and the INO technology are available as core elements at no additional cost in Cache Enterprise, Ensemble Enterprise, and HealthShare Enterprise. So we want you to build better applications. We would prefer that you have the opportunity to build those and deliver those at no incremental cost to you. Because if you sell more software, if you sell more applications, you'll sell more Cache licenses and we'll benefit in that way. So this is part of our offering to you to show you that we're committed to our partners building a better class of applications and generating increased revenue, which ultimately will benefit InterSystems. Enough of the generalities. Let me now spend a little time describing what we've seen as some recent examples of breakthrough applications. And I'm going to start by describing some in the Cache domain. The first is a firm actually based in Boston, across the river from our headquarters in Cambridge. This firm is called MFS, and MFS is a financial services firm. They're not very well known even in the United States, but that doesn't mean they're not important. MFS is actually the firm that first created the idea of the mutual fund and offered the very first mutual fund. And they have over $250 billion in assets under management. So they're a very significant firm. They've been using Cache for some time, and they began by looking at using Cache for an algorithmic trading system to guide portfolio managers in making their decisions about what to trade and when to trade. But as you're all aware, there's more today to financial services than just trading. Increasingly, security regulators are imposing significant constraints, significant auditing requirements, and significant compliance on the behavior of financial agents. And the firms then that engage in this trading have a significant challenge in how they can, first of all, monitor that the information that's provided, the way it's provided, is done in a manner that's consistent with the legal requirements, and to provide the auditing capabilities for the securities firms on top of that. MFS has responded to this, and this is part of the agility that we think is possible with our technology environment, by adding compliance checks into the trading system. A lot of that information is often unstructured, so as you might imagine, it's delivered via email, delivered via voice, and increasingly we expect they'll take advantage of the INO technology to extract that. But they are able to offer today real-time compliance checks on a system that's managing billions of dollars in trades every day. In the healthcare arena, Kaiser Permanente is the largest private electronic health record system in the world. There are over 8.5 million patients active in the system. There are 36 hospitals are part of the Kaiser solution in the United States, mostly on the West Coast, somewhat in the Rocky Mountains, but there are some also on the East Coast. HIMSS, which is one of the leading analytic firms in healthcare, ranks hospitals' use of IT in a staging that they call stage 1 through stage 7. Stage 7 is the highest level of automation possible, where the hospital's operating procedures have been profoundly transformed through the use of electronic medical records. Around the world, HIMSS has identified 66 hospitals that have reached stage 7. And all, 100% of the Kaiser hospitals, all 36 of them, are at stage 7. On top of that, though, individuals, patients like you and me, are using the system through portals, managing their own personal health record on top of this vast quantity of data, and using secure clinical messaging to interact with their primary care providers. All this is good, but this is really just a question of scale. What's happening there that's interesting is that with the deployment on such a grand scale of this system, medical researchers are now beginning to mine that data to identify clinical practices that work and measure the outcomes from those. And here are some very recent examples of papers that have been published in the scientific literature by Kaiser-based physicians doing research on medical quality. All available because we can tap into this vast quantity of data serving a very large population. In a very different domain, let me talk about real estate transactions. Immobilien Scout 24 is a website based in Germany that publishes real estate listings and helps people find properties that may meet their criteria, properties that are for sale. It has a very large user population, over 7 million unique visitors each month. Now, any of us who've bought or sold houses know that the simple facts are easy to describe. What's the square meters? How large is the garden? How many rooms? How many bedrooms? But oftentimes what dictates the value of a property are not those immediate facts, but the less tangible data that's usually described someplace else. What kind of schools are nearby? Are there parks nearby? What's the quality of the light? What's the quality of the neighborhood? And these facts are really what drive attractiveness and desirability and ultimately price for most real estate transactions. How do you tap into that? Well,